I figured a fitting topic for my first video with my sexy new microphone that is off camera would be to talk about my thoughts and experiences with relationships. Now, I'm not going to tell you all about my past relationships because who wants to watch a video where I'm just whining, am I right? Instead, I'll talk more generally about my thoughts on the idea as a whole. I don't have a lot of experience with dating, but the handful of experiences I do have are very colorful, and I tend to look at other people's relationships with an analytical eye, so I think I can talk about this topic fairly well. Obviously, future Liam will know more about this topic than I do, and is probably smiling and shaking his head as he watches this, but such is the way things are. Always the future version of me is going to know more than the present or past version of me. Obviously. I'm limited to my current experience level. To start off, I don't distinguish a difference between dating and being in a relationship. I've noticed that a lot of people do consider them different, where dating is what you do before you get into an actual relationship, but I don't think so. In my opinion, if you're seeing someone romantically, even if it's casual, you're in a relationship. I think that if you distinguish a difference between dating and being in a relationship, that gives you leeway to date other people and see nothing wrong with it. There is something wrong with it, at least in my mind. This brings me to the idea of polyamory. If you don't know what that is, Wikipedia defines that as the practice of or desire for intimate relationships where individuals may have more than one partner, with the knowledge and consent of all partners. They cited the source for their information, which I copied for you, and I'll include a link in the description if you want to check it out and see if they're accurate or whatever. Wikipedia went on to say that it's debated about whether polyamory is simply an approach to relationships or if it's an actual sexual identity. I've witnessed this debate in real life, as I've met people who identify as polyamorous, and I've met people who view it as a thing you do, not a thing you are. To be honest, I'm with the second group of people. I think polyamory is kind of sort of a way to justify cheating and not feel bad about it. And to be honest, it kind of gives bisexuality a bad name. Why would polyamory have anything to do with bisexuality? Well, that's because it's frustratingly common for people to assume that bisexuals, like myself, want to be with a guy and a girl at the same time. That is obviously not the case for most bisexuals. To be fair, there are a few who do want to date both at once and do actually participate in that, but I would say those people are not just bisexuals, they're bisexuals and also they're polyamorous. If you view it as whatever, let's not get into that. I myself am very strictly monogamous, and I even have trouble maintaining a connection with that one person I would be with at the time. Which brings me to asexuality. As well as being a bisexual, I identify with being on the asexual spectrum, which is to say that I have a very low sex drive. Full asexuality is having none, no interest whatsoever. I could blame my aversion on anxiety, or gender dysphoria, or Asperger's, but I think it's kind of its own thing, it's just part of my nature. Alright, that's enough on identities. What about practices in actual relationships, or courting traditions? I have pretty solid beliefs on this topic, so let's dive right in. Chivalry isn't completely dead yet, but I think it should be. Chivalry technically isn't about what most people assume it is. Here are the actual commandments of the chivalrous code of knights. As you can see, they're not all about what people think. But even if we disregard the actual chivalrous code and we assume that it's what people assume it is, I don't think it's a good idea. The onus shouldn't be on the guy to pay for things, to hold doors open, etc., just because he's a guy. And also, he shouldn't have to do that specifically for girls. I think that it should be a pretty unanimous thing. It's just being a good person. Girls should do it, guys should do it. Not just for the opposite gender either. Common courtesy isn't so common, and I think the idea of chivalry isn't helping. In my own relationships, I tend to contradict my tendency to value material things in that I hate gifts. I hate giving gifts, and I hate receiving gifts. They hold little value to me, unless they're something practical, in which case they're probably not something someone will give you as a gift. And they just kind of seem fake. It doesn't take that much effort to go and buy something for someone. And I don't think that can fix problems like actually talking or, actual actions will fix it. I think it's much more valuable to do favors or to just go out of your way to help each other out than to buy items. Even spending a day together, doing things like going to the movies or having a nice dinner, I think those are much more valuable than objects. Because in those types of, because it's the experience you're giving them. You're not giving them a thing that will just get dusty and it doesn't have as much value to it. It's not a piece of you. Giving them your time and effort, that's really important. I'm not even 20 yet. I've dated less than half a dozen people, none of whom were good choices. I'm far from an expert on relationships, and I definitely have a lot left to learn. Hopefully this was worth watching and you at least enjoyed hearing me talk. I'm planning on making my next video in a different style than a typical vlog like this, but I can't make any guarantees about when that will be. I'm not very consistent. Signed, Pastlian.